Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're looking at Geraldine Brooks's incredible memoir, Memorial Days. It's a really raw but also incredibly structured look at what it actually means to grieve in our modern world. Everything starts with these words, the kind of words that just cleave a life in two. It's a phone call, bringing the news that her husband, Tony Horwitz, has died, suddenly. And what we're going to explore is how this book just pulls apart that single world-shattering moment and everything that came after it, that long, complicated aftermath. So let's start right there, at the very beginning. The book doesn't ease you in, not at all. It just plunges you, headfirst, right into the chaos and the total disbelief of sudden loss. And you're right there with her. The news comes from an ER resident 500 miles away, and his voice is just flat, exhausted. There's no buildup, no gentle warning, just this stark, completely illogical fact that goes against everything she knows, you know? Her husband, who was vibrant and full of life just hours ago, is just gone.
And what's her first reaction? You'd think it would be to just collapse, right? To scream. But no. She describes this howl forming in her chest, and she consciously suppresses it. Why? Because she's alone. And she knows on some gut level that there's this overwhelming list of things that have to be done, starting right now. The sheer practicality of death just invades what should be a secret moment of grief.
Now here's one of the things that makes this memoir so brilliant, its structure. Brooks doesn't just tell the story from start to finish. Instead, she weaves together two completely different timelines to really get into the anatomy of her grief. We're constantly jumping between two worlds. On one hand, you have the frantic, chaotic days of May 2019, right after he died. And on the other, you have this quiet, solitary retreat to a place called Flinders Island, almost 4 years later. And this structure, it creates this incredibly powerful contrast between the immediate shock and the long, slow, unfinished work of mourning. To describe those years in between, Brooks uses this amazing Hebrew term, maitzar. It literally means the narrow place. And that's exactly what it felt like. A sense of being constricted, trapped, holding it all in, completely unable to get to what she calls the wild wideness of real, out loud grief.
So that trip to Flinders Island, it's not an escape. It's a deliberate mission. She's taking back the right to grieve. She is literally carving out the time and space to mourn that our modern world with all its demands and pressures almost never gives us. Okay, let's jump back to that May 2019 timeline. Because the memoir shows in painful detail the cold, impersonal machinery that just grinds into gear after someone dies. Brooks herself calls it a brutal, broken system.
Right away, the language she hears is completely clinical, totally detached. Her husband, the center of her entire world, is suddenly just a body. That verbal switch turning a person into an object, it's the first of so many blows that the system delivers.
And then there's this moment, the intimate, personal things that defined him, his glasses, his wallet, his phone, are just handed over in a sterile plastic bag. They're not treasures, they're not memories, they're an inventory. They're his effects. It's just such a jarring, painful disconnect. And it all leads to this final, just bureaucratic absurdity. The most fundamental ritual, seeing your loved one's body to make the unbelievable real, is denied to her. She's told she has to identify him from a photograph. A photograph. It just amplifies that feeling of alienation, of being failed by the very system that's supposed to help. Now, in total contrast to all that chaos, let's jump forward again to 2023, to Flinders Island. This is where the story completely shifts. It becomes about quiet, intentional, and really reflective work. On the island, she finally has the space to think, and what she thinks about are all the frameworks for mourning that other cultures have built, things like the Jewish Shiva or Aboriginal sari business. She looks at these structured rituals and realizes what a huge vacuum there is in a culture like ours, a culture that so often just replaces sacred mourning with cold paperwork. And a really key part of this whole retreat is that she starts reading Tony's old journals. And this isn't just about reminiscing, it's so much more. It's a way to actually commune with him, to hear his voice again in her head, and to see the life they built together, but through his eyes.
So you see, this weaving of the two timelines, it does more than just show then versus now. It actually builds a complete picture of a man, of a marriage, and of the very act of remembering itself. Through her memories and through his journals, we get to see the whole arc of this incredible life. We see them meet at journalism school. We see their years covering wars as foreign correspondents. We see him win the Pulitzer Prize. And we see him publish his final amazing book.
But right in the middle of all these amazing accomplishments, there is this absolute gut punch of a detail: 25. That's how many days pass between his doctor recommending a full battery of heart tests and the day he died. The appointments were scheduled for after his book tour was over, a totally fatal delay. Ultimately, the book finds its comfort not in forgetting, but in a totally new way of remembering. And it's captured perfectly by their son Nathaniel in his eulogy. He says that Tony's essence, the quintessence of his soul, it lives on, perfectly preserved inside his books.
And so, in the end, the book leaves us with this beautiful question, which actually comes from a song lyric. It reframes the whole journey of grief. It's not just about learning to accept an absence. It's about searching for the light that remains, the presence that endures in our memories, in our family, and in the legacy of a life that was truly well lived.